Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone, present and future, in absentia to Freehands Friday 31. If I've got my my times right, Neville. I'd like to introduce everyone to Scott Nevill from Moama, Australia. There you go, mate.
Good man, you.
Yeah. So we've been hanging out here, getting sounds together, and everyone can see the, the Tech Fest. What you've set up there, mate. So you've got a history in IT, just briefly, haven't you?
Not professionally, but been building stuff all my life, mate. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll pinch this camera off the top of the stick. I'll give you a look at what I'm running. So that's basically what I'm looking at now.
cool.
42-inch monitor, listening to myself through an Alesis drum mic, a little Behringer mixer, the other camera. Yeah, pretty cool setup.
Nice. So if Google's anything to go by, you're not the sort of player who you'd recognise with a Google search, Neville. So it seems like you and I have been hanging out for quite a while, the last 3 years, and uh, even just if we've seen each other like once every 6 months, then I've had the pleasure and privilege to see you just blossom, the exponential growth in that time. So it's like, as stick buddies, it's pretty cool when you get together and all of a sudden it's like a different stick player.
It's been a massive change since when we first met in Melbourne, eh?
Yeah.
I can remember, actually, it was about that time I nearly gave it away too.
Is that
If you
right?
remember, if you remember, I spoke to you about it. Um, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did speak with you about it, and I spoke with Steve Adelson as well as Greg. And Steve was probably one of the people that actually kept me going, mainly because I can't remember exactly what he said to me, but it was something that just all of a sudden made it click uh, as to how to approach something differently. And from that day, I was able to start getting back into it.
That's fabulous. And
And then I met you, and I just had to come and make myself get better.
well, that was the cool thing about meeting you, because apart from just having a stick buddy, I think most of us can relate to the fact that the stick is a pretty lonesome space to be, even though that's a good thing, because uh, it's all about your own ideas and concept and what you want to do for you purely as a creative venture, and a really personal uh, instrument, isn't it? Like you really just so many of us are kind of out on a limb in a good way, and it's obviously it's a very niche community, and the music we play is often very peculiar. So I mean, seeing you coming down to Melbourne, it was just tremendous for me to have a stick buddy and to really uh, bounce off someone else in the stick world.
I must admit, it was absolutely fantastic. It was a bit of an interesting organisation to try and get down there, but if you remember the rush that we had to do to get it there, but when I first, so the first time I knew anything about the stick was only last year. Um, and it was a friend of mine that you'll have to forgive me memory after the crash. It's not real great, but
Yeah.
uh, pretty sure a friend showed me a video. Yeah, no, it was. I know exactly which video it was. It was Bob Culbertson's version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And it was in that moment, hearing that and watching Bob play it, I just made the call. I've got to have one of these. It was just as simple as that. I had to have it.
Yeah.
been playing guitar since I was 8 prior to that. But you could see with Bob's playing, and then later on, obviously, I found others. You couldn't match it with a guitar at all.
That's a totally different way of playing, isn't it?
I reckon it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. Coming back to to Steve Addison, shaman of the stick. Yeah, and I can just imagine. I get it totally how Steve he's such a generous and fearless character, and a great teacher. I think he really tends to feel the pulse of the student, or just like you said, he says those things that are really applicable to anyone. Really, you can take it totally on its own merits, and it can be applied in a very personal way. So, can you say anything more about, say, with Steve, how you gained that sort of inspiration and any further sort of practical?
It was just really good coaching with Steve and Greg also. Like, I did some lessons with both. I was getting very, very frustrated early in the piece because, strangely enough, most people have the trouble with their right hand getting the melody side to happen, whereas I didn't have any trouble with that. I had a lot of trouble getting the bass side happening, and I still have a lot of trouble with the bass side, and that's what was really, really frustrating me and almost drove me to the point to give it up. And at the time, I was going through a heck of a lot in the personal life. And
Yeah.
Didn't leave a lot of time for the stick for a little while. But I just soldiered on, and yeah, then I met you, and that was really cool. That was exciting. Actually, that was a fairly warm day too, wasn't it, when I come down to Melbourne and met you at the studio?
That was bloody warm, like 38 or something.
Yeah, sweat box of a little room that we had up the back there. Trying to squeeze everything. That was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, and I think the confidence boost really happened when I actually met another stickers, and obviously yourself, and it opened the mind up to there is no limitations to this instrument. It doesn't matter what I play or how I play it.
Exactly.
It quite possibly does.
Yeah.
And
the
flip side too, of course, is if somebody else thinks it sounds like shit, well, it probably does too.
But it's totally up to us to sound shit if we really want to in our own privacy of our own rooms, or even on stage, right?
Yeah, my own.
So you've got a guitar background, haven't you? That's how you started, musically speaking, and then you are.
The very, very first instrument I played, I think, I couldn't tell you the exact age. I reckon I would have been about 3 years old. My grandmother is an absolutely amazing organist.
Is that right?
And then she's got photos of me bashing the heck out of the keys of this massive big Wurlitzer that she had. And not ever actually playing anything. I think the only thing I ever learned to play on it was probably chopsticks or your basic stuff. But then getting a little bit, I think it was about 5, and then here I hear my old man bashing the drums out to AC/DC Thunderstruck, and that was it. I was hooked on drums. I had to play. Mind you, we were at that stage we were out on a farm out in the middle of nowhere, so it was great. You could crank the stereo up, bash the living daylights out of the drums, but you didn't have anybody to worry.
Yeah. You still got that.
At the time, but
Sorry, say again.
I say I don't think I impressed his missus too much at the time.
And you've still got that arrangement, haven't you? So you're out at Moama and you're out in the man cave there right now. Yes. And you've got outside. Is it like you've got plenty of space and you can make noise?
Where I'm living is right in the middle of an industrial warehousing complex. So what I've done is, rather than rent, because I've got the truck, I've got a big boat, several other bits and pieces. There's just not enough room for me in a house, as well as having to hire a shed.
Might have lost Nevill for a little bit. So yeah, for those that are probably most of us aren't familiar. I don't even know if I was actually that familiar with where Moama was, but it's pretty much 3 hours out of Melbourne, driving north, and it's really close to Echuca, which is on the way to Wangaratta, if I've got my facts straight. So Wangaratta is the home of one of the country's best jazz festivals, and yeah, it's a beautiful part of Victoria, and a lot of people set up shop or live there or have created festivals. I think the Moama Festival happens once a year. Yeah, so it's a great setup. We'll see if Neville's back with us. So curiously, like I was saying about Scott, you're not going to know much about Scott's playing by looking him up on Google. He has been totally fearless in the way that he just got on the instrument and started just traveling and playing. Much like Carlin Lloyd Brees, if you remember the video with Carlin, the classic comment at the end of that video was, "Okay, let's jam." So people like Carlin and Scott, they're just fearless, going out there, traveling up and down the eastern seaboard, and have just jumped on the horse and started playing. So yeah, I've already taken a lot of inspiration from Scott. See if we can't get him back here. A bit more of the background of Scott. So he actually, in our first meeting, I started showing him a few chords that I was getting into, and I was talking in specific chord terms. Not that I'm a master at it yet, but the first thing he said to me was, "I don't know what that is. I got no idea what you're talking about." However, his ear is really well developed, so he could tell me, he could just play sounds, and then come back and say, "Oh, you mean that?" So if I play a, I don't know, D sus4 or something, he goes, "Oh, you mean this?" and just play it. But he had no idea what to call it in theoretical terms. So yeah, he's just going for it. So we'll just, if we don't get Scott back in the next minute, I might have to try this again. I'll be in 2 parts. Scott plays the 12-string grand Paduk, I think, if I remember correctly, and he recently bought himself a railboard, but because it was only a 10, he couldn't actually deal with the 12, the lack of the 6th string and the high bass. So consequently, he sold it on to not Elliot McCann in Perth, it's someone else in Perth, Simon Abbott in Perth, I believe. Yeah, so All right, well, we might just stop it here, and then we'll see you in part 2.